In this video lecture, I want to start with talking about how we make health decisions. There are components that go into our decision making, like how likely is an outcome, how important is that outcome to us, how soon will it happen, and then other characteristics of me as a decision maker. And decision making is actually a very interesting science that looks at these different components to try to predict human behavior. So if we're presented with different choices, what's labeled here as an intervention number 1, number 2, you could think of this as choice number 1 or number 2. It could be exercising versus not exercising, whatever you want it to be. But on the left side we have the behavior choice, and on the right side we have the potential outcomes that could result from that behavior choice. From our textbook, they list the 2 interventions and then the probability, how likely that a person will die based on the different interventions. So you can see with number 1, there's an 80% chance that they will be cured, a 20% chance of death. With intervention number 2, there is a lower percentage that they will be cured outright, but there's a 20% chance that they'll be cured but they'll be blind, and then a 10% chance that they'll die. These are the calculated probabilities based on past patient experiences with the different interventions. And in this example, the key difference between the interventions really is the being cured but being blind. So let's take a look at this. I'm not concerned that you know all the math about this, but I do want you to understand the basic concepts. So here we have the 2 interventions, and we have the probability that was on the previous slide listed here, with then a person's utility in terms of the value, how important it is to that person. And you can see here that being blind yet cured is different than on the next slide, where it's a 0.2. So you can see if you go back and forth between these 2 charts, if you look at the overall expected utility from this outcome, it's 0.8. And here with the person's utility of being blind at a 0.8, this intervention is a 0.6. However, if a person's utility for being blind goes down, in other words, a person says, I don't want to be blind, I don't want to say rather die, but I have a lower value of living with blindness, you can see that the utility overall for this intervention goes down and is lower, whereas it's 0.86 with a utility of 8. This person says, that's fine, I'd rather be cured and be blind than not be cured. This intervention has a higher utility. When you look at the person's utility for being blind as lower here, it goes down. So this person might choose the intervention number 1 because they have very low utility for being cured but blind, versus this person who says, that's okay, I'd rather be cured. They would choose this intervention. Again, don't worry so much about the number behind decision making, but understand that the probability of an outcome, along with the value I place on that outcome, will influence my decision for a certain behavior, as demonstrated by the intervention 1 and 2 and blindness. There are 3 approaches to decision making: informed of decision, informed consent, and shared decision making. Now there is a table in your textbook, table 3.5, that goes into detail with regards to the advantages and disadvantages of these different types of decision-making models. But in general, informed of decision means that the clinician has all the power. This is very old school Western medicine, where I go in, tell the physician what's wrong with me, they make a diagnosis, and they come in and they tell me what I'm supposed to do. They make these decisions hopefully with my best interest in mind, but the clinician has all the essential information, and I feel that he or she should just make that decision for me. With informed consent, the clinician has the responsibility to give me recommendations, but I must decide whether or not to accept or reject their recommendations. So the patient needs to be given some information and they make the decision, but still it's the clinician that's giving me that information. Versus a shared decision making, where the clinician serves as a source of information for the patient, and the patient can expect to be informed of the existence of a range of acceptable options, but then I also seek additional information about the possible options for treatment, and we as a team make a decision about what I should or shouldn't do. This is shared decision making. So of these three approaches, which do you want in terms of healthcare? Informed decision, where the clinician just tells you what to do because they have the information. Informed consent, where the clinician tells me what their recommendation is and then I can choose to do or not do it. Or shared decision making, where we both together collect information, talk about it, and come to a shared decision.